And then we're probably gonna have to cut this short. I can show you after I'm done, but because I'm waiting on the EGR gasket. So give me a minute. Let's see if we had any. Which I doubt we were going to. Okay. Well, we have pressure. Alright, so I'm just going to get back to this. I'll just turn the car off. And I'm gonna, I guess you probably can't even see me, but I'm gonna disconnect the battery again. Alright, so let's get back in here. Put this back on. Sure all these connectors are back together correctly, yes. I never took none of them off. Let's get back down here. Here and here. Right, I had somebody say something about that I wasn't talking loud enough on my videos. Which, you know, it is what it is. Alright, so we got a customer in my office and I just don't want to talk real loud. Okay, so up, up. I'm going to make sure there's no oil or anything on these. When we pull them out, make sure that the seals are okay. Make sure it's not leaking on the inside. And man, it's hard to tell, but these tube seals are starting to leak a little bit. So just give me one moment. Yeah, so here we go. Up. Too long. Come on, man. And that's another thing, man. When you got to make these boxes, you know, like your make. Hold on. This is just, man, this ain't my day. It's like coming back from Christmas vacation. So. yeah, you got to make sure, what I was talking about. Make sure when you put these, the coils back in, or whenever you do, anything to do with the ignition system being like your spark plugs, if you have them, coils, whatever, always make sure you, oh, yeah, you see this? This is because the valve cover, the oil seals are leaking. You see? This is the valve cover is leaking. So I'm gonna have to pause this because, you know, eventually it's gonna keep having misfires, and it's gonna keep having misfires because it's got oil building up, which is kind of shorting out the and maybe these are dry, but you're seeing this oil. Which, where are we at right now? What did I do with that? You see at the bottom it's saturated. Now I don't know how, it must have poured down inside there. So here we go. So now I'm gonna have to pause it, and I'm gonna have to see if my customer will pay for a valve cover gasket. This is the problem. This is what happens. This is what happens. Everybody says it's an easy job. It's not that big of a deal. And then what you have to do is you have to call them back up and you have to say, hey, you have all these other problems. Why didn't you tell me beforehand? Because I couldn't see inside of your motor. Now this one's not. This one's not. And believe it or not, we were having problems with a misfire on number 1. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to pull this other one. I'm going to pause it. And I'm going to try to figure out why, number 1, we have all those, we have all that oil on number 1. And this is number 1. And I don't see no oil here on the spark plug itself, or on the plug itself, but I do see it down inside of it. Now that leakage that fell inside of there, most likely that was because it was a pool in the bottom of it. Man, my job is never. Then it's going to be, oh, you know, you said this and you said that. And I just need the right, and this is why your mechanic gets mad at you, because you got a car that's old. Okay, so this one's halfway decent. They are old plugs, but that is leaking on the inside. So I'm going to pause it. And now I have to call this person and tell them they need a valve cover gasket also. Thank you. Okay, so I'm still waiting on my customer to give me approval for this valve cover in the back. And then, I don't know if I showed you already, while I've been waiting, I cleaned the throttle body. But like you can see, the reason why it's good to get these done, or get the injectors, your throttle plate cleaned, and you know, do fuel injection cleaning. Even at the C foam, that stuff actually works pretty good on this vehicle right here. On these anyway, it's sometimes easier. I like to use the R-Clean, which is kind of an OTC deal. And they have a little, there's a tool for it, and what you do is you put the R-Clean in it, and I think there's like a ratio mix for gas, which you put in there, and you actually hook it to the vehicle. It goes in through you disable the fuel injection system, or not the fuel injection, the fuel pump. Then you hook it, and on this one right here, we would hook it directly to the fuel rail itself, turn the vehicle on, and it actually would keep running until it uses it all up. But what that does, that actually just cleans the injectors. It's shooting this cleaner through the injector itself, and then with that, it's cleaning the upper part, you know, the tops of your pistons and also the tops of your valve seals or your valve. You got valves in there, and there's a seat. And just like if you noticed before, we had all this carbon buildup and liquid and oil. It's just debris, unspent gas. On here, that's not what it is, but on your intake valves, that's what it basically is. And it cleans the top of that too. Now, doing it once in a lifetime does not do anything, so that people get this clear. If you're going to use the seafoam works good. If you do it, you probably, if you really want to see any type of you want to see any difference, you don't do it once. You don't do it once every 5 years. What you do is you clean your throttle plate, you change your air filter, and you do that injection cleaning, and you do it maybe twice a year. That would be the bare minimum. Personally, I believe if you're going to use the seafoam and you're going to do it yourself, because it's pretty inexpensive for the most part, $25. And if you do it yourself, you would do it every third oil change. You try to keep with premium gas. You try to change your air filter every 9,000 miles. They're the kind of things that you do. You blow out your air box. On these right here, this is the throttle plate on here. Really, you should not push on this. This is a motor in here. It's basically an electrical motor. You do not want to push on here. You do that and you mess up the gears in this little motor that's inside of here. The best way to do it, if you're going to do it, is the spray carburetor cleaner on the inside, wipe it out with a rag, pull the whole deal off, and then clean it from the inside. That's the best way to do it without damaging anything. Yes, on some vehicles you have to do a throttle plate relearn. Basically, it's learning where it's zeroed out at, the throttle position or the accelerator pedal position. All that is related to this drive-by-wire type throttle body. And now I'm still waiting for them, so I'm going to do these front spark plugs. And then hopefully they do the rear. But like you've seen in the video, you can't always tell that the oil seals, the valve cover oil seals, are leaking until you actually take them off. When you do these, though, always make sure you use like electro dye grease in the ends. Basically what that does is, because condensation, regardless, gets in here, and then since the diode or the spring, there's like a spring in this, they can get rust on it, which can get that build up, which would be white. It's like the green stuff that you get on your battery, but except it's basically white in here. And you put that on there. Not only does that electro dye grease help with the connection, basically, and keeping the components in here at least moisture free, or keep it from settling on because I think this is actually the spring that's in there, I think is actually nicroleum. So it gets like a powdery white like buildup on there. But if you put it on, not only that, but be gentle with this, so I'll never drop them. It'll actually help keep the rubber boot pliable. When these start to crack, what happens is the arc that usually goes directly to the spark plug tip itself, to the top of the spark plug, it's able to jump out and ground itself out in the spark plug tube, to the block, every other place other than the actual spark plug itself. So that's one of the things. I'm going to pause this, and then hopefully we get this person to buy the valve cover or pay for the service. If it wasn't for the fact that I don't have to take the valve cover off, we are giving them a kind of like a deal on it. If not, then eventually what's going to happen is from the oil leaking through the spark plug tubes into the spark plug cavity itself, what happens is then the oil starts to settle on the boot itself, which then causes, you know, there's an issue in there. Ooh, man. I wonder if this is. Anyway, no, see, and that's another thing. Here you go. This is how you can tell. This is what I'm trying to tell people. You see how there's rust up in here? I don't know if you can kind of see, but there's like a little bit of buildup. That's just from condensation that got inside of here and caused that. Now, these are actually good. I haven't had no issue with them yet, but who knows? But it's just preventive maintenance. It prevents other issues. Sometimes what I do when these are new anyway, I stick a little bit of electro dye grease right around here. It keeps this spongy, which then also keeps water from being able to get trapped inside here, which then causes all these other issues also. So that being said, I'm going to pause this and we'll see what this lady does. All right, thanks. All right, so we did get approval from this lady for the, which was a strain for the valve cover. Thank goodness. But anyway, okay, so real quickly, because I'm going to pause it, but I'm just going to let you see. On these right here, and you don't have to, but I put a little bit of never sees on the spark plugs, because when you put these in, you got to remember something. These plugs are steel going into an aluminum block that has a sleeve in there. And by experience, I've found that, you know, if you do this, it alleviates, where's my other ratchet? It alleviates them coming out real hard the next time, you know.
Because the next time might
Right, the next time might be a real long time, but what happens is, because they leave them in there for so long, and then just say hypothetically it would get frozen in there, then you got to go through a really difficult process to try to get them out. If you break them off inside of there, I get another swivel, just one. And you could just take a minute. Now you don't want to get it nowhere's close. You just basically want to put it on the threads. Just a little bit, just a little skim on there. And what it does is it gets into the threads, and then it keeps it from getting locked in there. You know, little tricks you learn. Actually, I learned that from you know, like on those Nissans with the 2.5 motors, they never change out the plugs, and from the factory, they never, they don't do it, you know, the machine don't do it. I don't think they do it if they put them in. So what happens is they get frozen in there, and I've had a couple of them where they broke off into the head, and, you know, it's just such a big ordeal trying to get them out. So,
it's very courteous to the next mechanic.
right, and it's courteous for the next guy. And plus, if you're a DIY guy, just so you know, babe, that means someone who does it themselves.
I know what the, it's actually DIY, do it
DIY.
yourself.
Do
You know,
it.
they made a song about DIY, do it yourself. Nobody would know that, that's from the 70s.
Right. So let me get another one.
Do you also use dielectric?
Yes, and I also use dielectric on the yeah.
Is it in the frame? Dielectric?
Yeah, dielectric. And what I do with that is I put it on the, I think I may have already said that, but I'll say it again.
I didn't know, sorry.
No.
And I didn't know, this is the only brand anti-seize we like to use as well.
Yeah, it's inexpensive, and I'll tell you what, man, if you watch my other video, I've had this can, I've had that can, man. I think
Permatex, baby.
I've
4
had
years.
that for 4 years.
I have another can
and I
on the
use
shelf.
it.
We're waiting to use it.
Right, I use it on almost everything I put back together. You know, if it's used and I got to put something back together, I use it on it, like on my lugs.
Can I say, when we find a product that we like, we use it across the board.
Yep.
We like the green Ultra Disc Brake Caliper Lube,
Yep.
and we like the battery protector and sealer.
Yep. I mean, I've never had a problem with it. The only bad thing about those, the caliper grease is it is a little messy, so you got to be like really careful how much you put on. But you don't need that much. As long as every time you pull a caliper apart, you clean it, you clean the boot, and you put this.
Coming back down to say, Permatex, this is the gasket maker. He's doing an oil pan in the back later on today, and there's another Permatex shout out.
Sorry about that. That one swivel socket I got is just doesn't lock into place very well. Ugh. And I think I might have.
What are we saying, BRB?
BRB. I don't know what that means.
Be right back.
I'll be right back. Yeah. Well, no, I'm just gonna show you. It came off, so now I'm gonna have to reach in there manually and pull it out. It's because I'm working, trying to work really fast, and I shouldn't be doing that. So, oops.
Had you said on your video how she had a complaint of I smell burning?
Yeah, she smelled burning, so that was the valve cover leaking, and so it all coincides. Every time somebody comes in, you always find something like that injector. She did have an injector code, and she had a misfire in the history, but oh man, this is just so hard to like explain stuff while you're working at the same time. But this is number 1. This is number 2. So you just got to put a little squirt on there. I sometimes put a little bit at the edge just to kind of keep it moist up here. It just makes it easier to come back out. You don't have to go crazy. And this one goes here. But, I mean, you really got to love what you do. I really like what I do. Just a little bit of a squirt. Then you put a little bit right here. It's not going to kill anything because it's actually just silicone. So, keeps it moist. It creates a better barrier at the top of the tube. So if your vehicle does get wet, it's handled. It makes it so where it leaks less. So that's there, and this is number 4. Do it again. And like I said, you don't have to put a whole bunch of this in here. You're just basically wanting it to stay moist and protect the spring that's in there from getting that white buildup on it. Just helps them last longer. Like with the plugs, it makes it come out easier the next time you got to do it. And so that's the best thing. All right, so I'm going to pause this because I got a customer. Hold on 1 second, please.
Can you text me about the bedroom?
Yeah, I know. All right, so we're going gotta take this back off. I had a customer. And I had to deal with it. So, on the front one, the front plugs, we already got them in, so they're pretty self-explanatory. And I'm gonna take these off now. Oh, man. The rear bolts are on the valve cover. No, I thought it was loose, it wasn't. There is a connector on the back of this valve cover, which is for the what's it called? Oh, the O2 sensor, upstream. Which, it's got like a little bevel thing on there. We'll just pop it off. And I'm doing it like this because, you know, this way the average person realizes that you can do everything with just a ratchet. I could be getting it done faster. It is what it is. Now when these go back on, I still got to look up the torque spec. And like I always try to tell people, there's a procedure. However it says it's supposed to go on, that's what you should do. While it was off, I cleaned the EGR tube. I don't know if, it might not be so I can show you. And then the new gasket. I have a couple extra ones around, so pretty much universal for the EGR. There are times when you have to. I think I'm what you consider to be old school. I have a gasket maker, and I make my own sometimes. And let's just get this up a little. Yeah, I don't feel like running back, so let's get this a little bit of a twist. You want to be very careful. You don't never want to really pry on these because these are plastic.
That was your gasket, right?
Yes.
Oh.
I hate doing these. Just keep twisting them a little bit. I'm sure somebody has a better way to take them off, but this is my way. Ugh. Let's see if you can get them on the edges. You can get right up underneath without taking any chances. There you go. Just gotta- And the reason why it's like that is because you got those spark plug tubes in there. Inch 'em up a little bit. Just gotta be very gentle. Right. Now you just gotta double check. Yep, okay. Like I like to say this to everybody, man. There have been times that I have forgotten or inadvertently didn't loosen something and then caused myself more problems. And since there's nothing there, so let's go. There's that O2 sensor.